Welcome to another episode of the Sport of Bowling Show. On this week's show, we feature USBC Executive Director Chad Murphy, Luby Publishing co-owners Keith Hamilton and Mike Pinozzo, Bowler's Journal International Editor Jean-Marc Manzione, InsideBowling.com founder Mike Flanagan. And now, it's time for the Sport of Bowling Show.
Hey there, happy Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Got a great show for you today. I'm sure you heard the intro, so I'll be brief there. Hopefully everybody got the information. On Friday, we announced that USBC has purchased the assets of Bowler's Journal. Really exciting time here for us, a new communication tool to talk about, celebrate our members with. Information and education will certainly move forward as keys to the day. Keith and Mike will come on in a few minutes and we'll take some questions from everybody, some good dialogue. Really excited about the future and this brings. With that, I'll invite Jean-Marc into the show. Jean-Marc, how are you doing?
I am great, Chad. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being a part of the show today, but more importantly, thanks for being a part of this new journey for USBC with Bowler's Journal inside the portfolio. I know you've been doing it a long time. I know you'll keep doing it as you do it. But what were your first thoughts when you found out about this and knew that you'd be a part in moving it forward?
I'm thrilled to be a part of the plans moving forward with this magazine. I love the opportunity that I have to be a storyteller in the industry, to celebrate the past, present, and future of the sport. I know that those opportunities will continue and, in fact, perhaps even be reinforced in the months and years ahead as Bowler's Journal transitions into a USBC property with a more, as we'll discuss, I'm sure later, sort of consumer-facing approach to the editorial going forward. I know that's going to present some long-form feature opportunities in the months ahead. And I really think that existing and future subscribers of the magazine are going to be quite pleased by what they see in the magazine and the new look and feel that it will develop over time.
Thanks for that. Storytelling. I think that's the key phrase there.
Agreed.
So I appreciate you saying that. I know you're having being someone who has read your book. I know you are a storyteller, and so that won't spend too much time without bringing superstar Mike Flanagan in from Inside Bowling. Mr. Flanagan, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
What's been going on in your world the last few weeks since we've been together?
We've done some live streaming. We launched Backstage Bowling and working with some other clients in the bowling industry that need some help digitally. So that's kind of what we've been up to, kind of more of the same, but obviously it's way different since March. So just trying to stay alive and pay attention to what's going on and promote bowling, and looking forward to the things that are coming up here in the future with all the changes.
I enjoyed I forget what it's called, but the Midnight Madness, kind of piece of business that was the St. Louis Bowler Society. I enjoyed watching some of that with Brad and Kyle and you and everybody they had on the show. It looked like a fun weekend. I know you were working hard, so maybe not as much fun for you, but it looked like a great event.
Yeah, there were 3 events that weekend. We had the Midnight Bowler Society on Friday night that I was invited to come in town and produce and stream for Brad and Kyle and Danny Spink, and it was attended very well. I was also very surprised to see how many people were taking COVID serious. I was very skeptical of that, and spectators and everybody was doing a great job with that. So that was cool. And then Saturday, the Brad and Kyle Women's Open, which was more of a traditional type women's event in one day. They did a great job with it. And there were a lot of moving parts in that whole thing with local St. Louis tournament directors, along with Brad and Kyle promoting it and me producing it. And a whole bunch of people came together to put that on. So that was cool. And then, of course, Sunday I got to work with my buddies Rich and Steve Orff to honor their dad, Ray Orff, in a doubles tournament while everybody was in town. So it was a big weekend for St. Louis bowling. Obviously, it was because there's a lot of other things that are canceled out there. So St. Louis kind of came together to take advantage of it. And the folks that felt comfortable traveling in and bowling during our pandemic were able to do so in a somewhat safe environment, at least is how I call it. So I felt safe, and I traveled in, and have no regrets whatsoever. So it was a great weekend.
That's good to hear. One of the texts that I sent you and Brad and Kyle, I've been watching for about 45 minutes when I asked the question, hey, somebody help me out here. Where are these ladies supposed to be playing? They were pretty hard there in the beginning.
Yeah, you know, they put out challenging conditions. That's what those guys are going to do, and they developed a pattern and tested it, and you know, they did a great job with it. So yeah, I have no idea where they're supposed to be playing. Aren't all the ladies normally typically with lower rev rate supposed to play outside, break them down, and throw it to the spot? That's what I think.
Yeah, well, it was a fun time. For me, that was, pretty cool because I know there's still a lot of bowling center proprietors and consumers in distress that are still not getting to do something that they love. And so seeing that and be pretty widely watched, it was a lot of fun to just sit there and kind of take it in. I kind of came in and out of it all 3 days, but, big fan of the Orfs as well, as you know. So anyway, I thought it was wonderful. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, it's the one thing whenever you fire up live streaming, you know, I just feel blessed anytime anybody wants to tune in and watch bowling, and to have that kind of turnout was pretty nice. I think people are extremely hungry for bowling right now, so I think that helped with some of the numbers that we had coming in to watch that.
Yeah, very cool. Before we bring Keith and Mike Pinozzo in as advertised, anything you guys might want to ask of me as part of this deal? And then we'll bring those guys in and have you spend most of the hour with them.
I would just ask Chad, what are you most excited about in terms of the opportunities that this partnership presents between a Bowler's Journal and USBC going forward?
I think the advanced storytelling. I think, Mike and Keith have done such a wonderful job with the magazine and sort of Luby Publishing before that, but just moving things forward. Doing some celebration of our athletes within the magazine. We're great at telling the story of the events and what happens. So-and-so beat so-and-so by this. Jason Belmonte has obviously been somebody that's been in the magazine. But if I could use Jason as the example, but the background storytelling, more features, where Jason was, early on, what he plans to do afterwards, but really taking a celebratory look at our sport, in addition to the, kind of business stories that take place. It's an iconic brand, over 100 years, which we'll get into a little bit today. So a real opportunity for us as an association to build a new communication tool for our membership, but the larger bowling. And I think I've said this a few times, celebrating bowling through storytelling, but then also another communication tool to inform and educate more of the aspects of the sport, I think, are the biggest pieces of it.
Yeah, I haven't talked to either one of you guys about this. I'll fire in here. But, I was just thinking from a pandemic standpoint and just from a state of a newspaper, print, media, magazines. I was very concerned for Bowler's Journal and Luby Publishing when the pandemic happened. Obviously, we've all been affected. And I thought, what is going to happen? Business can't be booming, right? And in order for that to succeed or to happen, and if someone were to purchase it, nobody from outside of bowling was going to purchase that as a good investment. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And when I got the news that you guys at USBC had purchased the magazine, I felt very happy. It was a very happy thought for me. Like, okay, it's in good hands. It's a continuation of the media, which USBC needs so much. And I just thought, man, who are they going to keep? Who are the people that are going to still be on board, and who's going to become part of this whole thing? So that was my initial thought. So Chad, I guess I would just ask you, were you thinking the same thing? And was this on your radar? And how did you get the deal done, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, as somebody that's been reading the magazine for a very, very long time, I appreciate it. I'm a reader to begin with, but Bowler's Journal also, fits into, our association communication. If you think about how we should really be doing it, lots of folks have heard me say over the last, 5 or 6 years that, it's tough to get the outside sports world to come in and cover it. So we have to be responsible to covering it ourselves. And so I appreciate what you said there, Mike, because it is an exciting piece. We feel like we can grow the subscriptions in unique ways within our associations. If you think of our tournament bowlers and how many folks, bowl our tournaments, maybe there are ways to increase it there. Association leaders, maybe there are ways to increase it there. there's just so much to it. But we can work with Bowler's Journal. And in essence, that's what we're doing with John, Mark, and Mike and the other contributors. They're going to move forward with the magazine, keep some of the aspects that are more, business or industry related, but then add to them with additional investments, having folks, at the tournaments, covering the tournaments and the stories that come with it, which, over the years, Mike and Keith have done such a great job of keeping Bowler's Journal alive and moving it forward. But to your point, the pandemic really has, we're not running events for one thing, or events like we like to run where we crown champions anyway as an industry. And so it'll just be a time where we move the magazine forward over the next 18 months or so, get back to normal, and then we'll get it fully up and running. But, the how and why is easy. There was an opportunity here to work with Mike and Keith and move this brand forward. And it kind of felt like, in addition to it being something that could be beneficial to our members, our associations, I think we also have a responsibility to do that as well. There's just too much history and tradition with the brand to not, consider it and push things forward. Cool. Well, I appreciate those questions. We should just get to Mike and Keith, if that's all right. Again, I appreciate that. We'll bring in Mr. Keith Hamilton and Mr. Mike Bonozzo. I just found out these guys met each other in June 1981. We're working for Luby. They purchased Luby Publishing in 1994. So these guys have been working together a long time. We've got them sitting next to each other because they've spent so much time together over the years. But guys, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thanks
the
for having us.
opportunity.
Yeah, we've shared the same desk for 26 years.
Anything you guys want to start with before I ask a couple questions and then step out for John, Mark, and Mike? Anything you guys want to open with?
Yes. First of all, thanks. We love this opportunity to address the readers, to address our advertisers, to address the bowling community. This is a very emotional time for us, a very difficult decision, but we know it was the right decision, and we know that we sold it to the right company, because what was most important to Mike and me is that we keep the Mort Luby legacy alive, and we keep Bowler's Journal alive for as long as we possibly can. So when we looked around, we knew we needed to go to a company that cared about bowling, loved bowling, and had the financial resources to see it through difficult times that may arise, I guess, such as the pandemic. So we're fortunate and very happy with that.
Mike, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I echo what Keith said. I mean, it was, the priority for us was finding the right landing spot for the publication, because, as you said, it's an iconic brand. It's got 107 years of history. It deserves to be around a lot longer, and we wanted to make sure it was in the hands of people who could carry it forward for another 107 years. So that was the priority for us.
If you don't mind, just from my perspective, I've been reading it, for years and having conversations with you about it. When I read in your statement from over the weekend where you explained, more stewards than owners, could you just go into a little more detail than that about how you would describe that? You guys have been operating this for so long, and you think about the ups and downs of it and just moving it forward. Keith, I've heard you talk about, before, how important Bowler's Journal is to bowling, and I agree with that. But give a little more detail into, defining that, stewards rather than owners.
Yeah, it's a very, I guess, odd statement maybe, but we knew that buying Bowler's Journal, it wasn't just buying a company or buying a magazine that, few people have seen throughout the years. We knew that Bowler's Journal has been telling the story of bowling since 1913. Bowling became organized in 1895. So that's a very important, history is important. And it's been storytelling for 107 years. But Mike and I have only been there as owners for the last 26. Of course, we started in 1981, so it's been 39 years, 40 for Mike. But we feel that Bowler's Journal belongs to the industry. It's an industry magazine. And when I say industry magazine, I don't mean trade or consumer. I mean it belongs, not to sound corny, but it belongs to the people. So that's what I mean, what Mike and I have always felt, that this brand needs to continue, it needs to continue to tell bowling's story. And that's different from the other magazines that we publish. For instance, what we're proud of is Mike and I together, our first product that we developed, that we created, was Bowling Center Management. That's Mike's, that's mine. We created it. We developed it. And now we sold it. The Bowler's Journal is something that we purchased, we inherited. We inherited a privilege. And we just felt that that was something that belonged to everybody. I remember 2 weeks after we bought it, Tom Curl saw me at a bowling center. Not too many people knew me, but at that time, but Tom went up to me and he says, Keith, I just hope you realize what you purchased and what your responsibility is to the industry. And I looked him in the eye and said, Tom, we do. And we won't lay you down. I know this, we'll give it our best. So.
And if I could, spin that a little bit to you, Mr. Pinozzo, when you think about, now moving forward, staying on as the publisher, if you will, and working with USBC, helping us, move things forward into the future and continuing a lot of that same, kind of thinking and culture. Well, what's it mean for you when you think about it moving backwards? You're still a steward, if you will, as you have described here, but at this point in time, USBC will be investing into the magazine and thinking about how we best go about that moving forward, where before the two of you were certainly investing your own money into it.
Well, to me, it really doesn't change a lot because it's the same proprietary feeling toward the product itself. And that's why, we mentioned in the release of feeling more like stewards than owners. We had something that had already existed for a long time before we got there. And I used to say it was our goal basically not to mess it up. The Luby name is what is the iconic connection to Bowler's Journal. And as I said in the statement as well, that's the reason we named it Luby Publishing. That's where the value was. That's where the history was. And so to take it forward from this point and be part of that, I'll take the same feeling as if I still have ownership. And that's just to try to put out the best product we can. And now with resources that USBC can help us with, we can get the magazine to evolve and to change a little bit and to grow, and to shift to being more storytelling is very enticing. It was a very storytelling magazine. When I look back at the old issues from the 60s and early 70s, there's a lot of long form feature writing personality profiles that were great. And over time, as the sport grew and media grew, and there were just more moving parts. There were more things to write about. There were more things that needed to be explained, and the magazine, would start to get a little bit clogged up. So the idea to spread our wings a little bit and get back to that type of writing, that's really appealing to me.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Mike and John Mark. I'll be back in a little while. Just want to say before I'm going to tell a story about the two of you later on, similar to the one you just told about Tom, Keith. But I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. I'm proud of everything that you've done over the last, 25 years with this magazine. Really appreciate it. And it really setting the table for us to move it forward. We wouldn't be able to do that if you hadn't have done what you have done. So I really appreciate and love you for it. John Mark and Mike, you guys can have Adam, and I'll be back in a little while. Thanks.
Hey guys, you mentioned meeting in the very early 1980s, and so for Pinozzo, it's 40 years. For Keith, it's 39, and this development seems like an occasion for, while we look ahead, of course, to Bowler's Journal's future, also look back on your decades-long tenures with Luby Publishing. I'm curious if, as you look back, there are any memorable moments or stories that you could share between 1980, 1981, and now in 2020. Maybe some stories involving Mort Luby Jr. that you guys that come to mind for you that you think people would enjoy hearing about.
The list of memorable stories is a lot longer than the list of what we can share. But yeah, I mean, we both have great memories of our time here. I'm sure both of us think back to the days that we, first started. I remember my interview with Mort for the job. At the time, it was as editor of his billiard magazine, which he had split off from Bowler's Journal in 1978. It used to be Bowler's Journal and Billiard Review. Then the billiard industry complained that it wanted its own title, and Mort broke the magazine off and created Billiards Digest, and needed someone to run that magazine. And when I told my father, who was a longtime, lead bowler, that I was interviewing for this job, he knew who Mort was immediately, which didn't help me because it just made me more paranoid and worried about meeting this icon in bowling. And I just remember sitting there with him, and Mort was such a great guy, very professional. And I lied my way as best I could through that interview. Like most people do. It's, my thought was just get the job, and then you can fall on your face later if you can't do it. Get in the door and do the best you can. And so even though the early years, for the first 14 years, I worked exclusively on the billiard magazine, I learned, everything from Mort with regards to publishing and a lot about bowling as well, because I used to go to, conventions with the crossover billiard and bowling people. There were a lot of symmetries back then, and got to meet a lot of the bowling people and learn more about that industry and that sport and how similar it was to billiard industry. So yeah, those my early memories with Mort and the publishing company are great.
Yeah, well,
I of course would like to hear from Keith. But Mike, am I correct that one of maybe your first writing assignment was to cover Patty Ann for the magazine? And if so, what do you remember about that?
Yeah, that was I hadn't even gotten the job yet. Mort said, what I'll do is I'll give you, $200 to write this story. I need it in a week and a half. And, we'll see. We publish it. It's great. It may help you get the job. It may not. And so that was my assignment. And I remember Dressel pulled me aside at the time and said, she only goes by Patty Ann, and there's this big mystery about what her last name is. And what you need to, if you can dig the last name out of her, that will certainly help your causes, which I didn't do, but it was actually a lot of fun. I did some cursory reading about her and about women's bowling at the time. And it was a fun story, and Mort published it and hired me and never left. Only job I've ever had out of college.
Wow. Keith, how about you? How about your memories from your 39 years at Luby?
Well, I had it different than Mike, a little bit easier getting in. I was 2 weeks out of high school. And my plan for that summer before I was going to go to college was to play golf and play basketball all summer. And my dad had different ideas. He says, you're getting So my sister knew somebody who knew a guy named Luby. And my dad said, Luby? Because is that the guy in Bowler's Journal? I said, I don't know, Dad. But sure enough, my first day at the job, I kept hearing about ABC. At first, I thought it was the TV station. How cool it would be to be associated with the TV station. But I found quickly it was bowling, especially when I worked on Bowler's Journal. There's too many stories about Mort Luby, obviously. I love watching Morton in action. I mean, he's just so smooth, and he had such grace about him. And we're not too smooth, and we're not too graceful. But one thing we knew is we can't try to be Mort Luby. That's one thing we knew right away. We're gonna have to put our own identity on it, because you can't pull up Mort Luby better than Mort. I'll tell you what, the proudest thing I am about what Mort did is what happened with the National Bowling Stadium. The fact that Mort always wanted there to be an arena in bowling, a dedicated stadium. And so what did he do? He went out, he hired an architect to draw plans, and he put these plans in Bowler's Journal. It was 8 pages. And there were 3 cities who really thought Mort's idea was pretty good. And of course, one of those was Reno.
Mm.
And 5 years later, there it was. And I remember the first time walking into the stadium. That was the FIQ. I believe that was the first event. And I was just so proud.
Mm.
And of what Mort Luby's vision, how it panned out to a national bowling stadium. It'll be always one of the special moments that I've had with bowling, and there are a lot of special moments. But yeah, so that was Mort.
Flanagan?
Okay, guys. Yeah. First of all, both of you, I want to thank you for the job that you've done at Bowler's Journal and at Luby Publishing and all the different publications that you're in charge of, and the crew that you've been able to put together over the years, and all the storytelling and all the covering of events that you've been able to do. I just want to personally thank you on behalf of myself and bowlers all throughout the world as someone that has followed the magazine and has appreciated the work that you've done.
Oh, thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
So with that said, this is obviously got to be very emotional for both of you. I know, Keith, you're a very emotional person over the years. You're very passionate, right? And Mike,
Yeah.
I don't know you as well, but I deem you to be the same type of character here, to be able to be able to operate this magazine, which probably wasn't the most profitable venture in the world for so many years. There's got to be a passion and a love for it, and to be able to let that go and hand it off to someone else sometimes is not easy to deal with. So I guess I would just ask you both, whoever would like to answer, or you can ping pong it back and forth. What made this decision right now, and how are you emotionally handling it right now?
Well, I'll go first, Mike. I don't want to say it's hell, because it's tough. It's been a long time, and but we think it was the right decision to make. And we're not blaming anything, but with the pandemic, you're right, Mike, you said it earlier, it kind of hurt. We saw the future for the magazine. One thing that we did smart was we actually started at least planting the seed in USBC's brain that one day Bowler's Journal would be available for sale. Mort Luby sold us the magazine when he was 63, and Mike may look 30, but he's 62. So there was a course of action that we plotted a while ago that it was just starting to become time, and so we went through a lot of that procedural stuff, and so it made this easier to go back to. Thankful to USBC, to Chad, to Jason Overstreet, to the board of directors for stepping in during a difficult time they're having to, and the employees in Arlington, like everybody else, stepped in and was able to come in and make the deal happen. But what led to this right now? It was probably safe to say the virus did, and we needed this magazine to go on. So I struggled with it at first, actually. And by the time we sold it, I knew it was absolutely the right thing to do. And the moment, I told Chad this on Friday, the moment when I knew, wow, bowling has some issues, it's when the Hillman's Bowling Center closed. That really, now here's a family. They do everything right. And they have to close. And, I just was so concerned for bowling. And that just kind of, at that moment, told me, you're doing the right thing. And we won't look back, except with fond memories and love for the sport. But mostly, we love the people in the sport. I mean, there's other things Mike and I could have done out of college, or gone different directions. But the people in bowling, it just kind of tug at your heartstrings. The passion. I don't care if they're critical or kind. You know one thing, for some reason, this sport touched people's hearts, their lives. And it touched ours. So to to let it go, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's hey, Keith, summed it up. It's an emotional thing when you put that much time and sweat and blood and tears into something, and it was your own, and you had your house mortgaged against it, and whatever else it is, But if it's something that you believe in and something you have vision for, there's a lot of satisfaction there. So anytime you have to let that go, it's a difficult time. You would like to have thought that it would be in better circumstances than the middle of a pandemic that's having a negative effect on an industry and in magazine publishing, which has seen its better days on top of that. So you compile all those together, and it just it was the right thing to do at the right time, but it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, one of the other things about this bowling industry is a lot of different companies run with smaller staffs. It's small core teams that are working around the clock, jack of all trades, having to do everything, dig in, mop the floors in the bowling center, all the different things you guys have had to do. So I guess I just would like to ask the question, over the last, let's just say 5 years, have there been any points in time where you guys have been in a real financial hardship? You just mentioned something about, mortgaging a home or something like that, which I laugh about it, but it's true in business. As an entrepreneur, it happens. You go through ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Was there anything over the last 5 years that has happened where Bowler's Journal almost shut down, or you had to sell, or you had to go knocking on doors or anything like that?
Well, these are real interesting questions. No, but I tell you what we were still recovering from. When we lost the U.S. Bowler contract that we used to produce for USBC, coupled with the 2008 economic crisis, that hit us hard. It hit Mike and me hard. It hit us personally hard. So when we righted the ship and we did the necessary adjustments to become profitable again, we never really made enough profit to make up for the woes, believe it or not, just dating back from 12 years ago. So that's a tough thing to chase. When you can't get ahead of it, and you always got this thing behind you, this debt or however you will, it's one day you're going to get caught. And we've done a pretty darn good job of money management. We have a brilliant business manager who was able to, I don't know how she did it, to be honest with you, but knew when to pay bills, when not to pay bills, how to manipulate money between accounts, just sensational. And so we've been able to get through it. And we're fine. The company was fine. It was profitable enough. So yeah, we were struggling from a long time ago that we've never been able to get under, but no, there wasn't like a time where we were going to just fold the magazine. Absolutely not. No.
Well, kudos to you guys for that.
Around. We actually selected USBC. At least that was our first choice, was USBC. So we didn't want to shop it around, but we also, you don't want to sell if you don't have to in the middle of a pandemic. It's not the time to sell stock. It's not the time to sell assets, but unless you have to. So
Sure. So we've kind of talked about, kind of the struggles and stuff, and we kind of got real there for a minute. But let's take a look at USBC going forward for a moment, right? The USBC does what's right for bowling. We've seen it multiple times, whether if it's creation of the largest junior tournament in the world, right, for youth bowling, whether if it's rejuvenating the PWBA tour and bringing it back because it's something that we need for young girls to aspire to be. Now USBC is picking up Bowler's Journal. How do you two guys feel overall about the future of Bowler's Journal being in the hands of the same group that has demonstrated over and over again that they are doing what's right for bowling?
Well, I feel good about it, but what I liked about it was their approach. Their approach wasn't, well, let's just take the magazine in-house and then we'll take this story, give it to that guy in PR and this guy over here, and they have a graphic person. No. They retained our staff, because that one thing that's never been questioned is about the quality of Bowler's Journal. And I can say that because I'm not responsible for the publishing end. I'm the business end. It's Mike and John Mark and Bob Johnson who take care of the publishing end. So the quality was there, therefore the quality will remain. So that was my first gut reaction, was great. The product can only improve with resources. But where I'm excited is the potential for growth and distribution. I always felt, man, this is such a great magazine, but it only goes to 20,000 people or 15,000 people, whatever the distribution was given the time. I really believe with USBC and all the tournaments at the local level that, yeah, this magazine has an opportunity. It has an opportunity, I believe, to get to 100,000 readers, 8 subs. We've had a magazine, not us, in the industry, Bowling Digest, it was over $100,000, 100,000 readers. So I think with USBC's resources, it can get there. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, me too. I think it's something to be said just in bowling in general. We think that Flow Bowling should have 100,000 subscribers. Bowl TV should have 100,000 subscribers. Bowler's Journal should have 100,000 subscribers. And I think with this change over to USBC and more resources and what's going to be happening moving forward, it has a better chance to get there with more people working at it. And you spoke about how so many people are being retained and how the team's pretty much staying intact moving forward. I was happy to see that as well. Anything else you guys want to say before we bring it in back to Chad? Mike, your thoughts on that?
Just to that point, I mean, it's the resources that will allow the magazine to grow not only in circulation. I mean, circulation is obviously a huge thing. We think that it should go to 7,500,000 readers, and with storytelling, we can engage them more. But it's also the resources that USBC brings that allows us to get all the way around the product. I mean, you tie in, Bowl TV, and you tie in, social media, and you tie all these different things in and be able to tell the story in a 360-degree environment. That's going to create a lot more opportunity to get the magazine in front of more people, and then they can make the decision to buy the magazine.
One quick question for Mike and Keith both. We've talked about, well, really for Keith, I mean, we've talked about Mike continuing as publisher of Bowler's Journal, me remaining as editor of Bowler's Journal. But what about you, Keith? What, if anything, would you like to share with us about what's ahead for you?
Well, Luby Publishing will go on. We have a terrific billiard magazine called Billiards Digest, which Mike puts together. And about the greatest thing I can say about Mike, the greatest compliment I can pay Mike Pinozzo, and he hates this, is that Mike to the billiard industry is what Mort was to the bowling industry. I mean, that iconic, that revered, that influential. And it's a different animal for me. But, I'll be the business manager of that. And, of course, as long as the BBIA, Billiard and Bowling Institute of America, will allow me to continue to do the catalog, we'll do the catalog. And, support Mike as much as I can with USBC, with what he will be going through it during his transition. And then we'll see. And then at the end of 21, Mike and I will make the decisions at that point in time in what to do. And that's scary, but it's exciting. I always wanted to teach at a college, junior college. I always wanted to teach business classes. In fact, that was my choice when I, out of grad school, I was 23. And I had a commitment to work for Mort for 2 years because he helped pay for grad school. If it wasn't for that commitment, I might have went into the educational field. It's just funny how things turn out. Huh. And then when I was in these 2 years with Mort, and as I said, the people in bowling touched me, pulling my heartstrings. That's why I'm here.
So both bowling and America's youth benefited by Keith's decision.
Thanks, guys. Isn't it amazing? Because it came up there a few times, but I always say this industry is so intoxicating because of the people. I'm somebody that has been in a lot of pro shops around the world, a lot of bowling centers around the world. So I appreciated that perspective from you guys, because the people are such a big part of it. It's hard to think about doing something else with all these great people. I think I had about 4 questions in the chat. I want to hit real quick. Would you guys mind just giving everybody an update on BCM and where it's headed?
Good. BCM?
Bowling Center Management has been acquired by the Bowling Proprietors Association of America. We are extremely excited about that. It belongs there. It's the BCM's the official publication of the association. It has been for 25 years. Ironically, the September issue was its 25th anniversary. Just weird, but again, M Magazine will always be special to us, because that was our first project. That was our first. This is ours. This is our stamp. I'm proud to. So, but what you're going to see with BCM's a fantastic trade magazine, and under BPAA's umbrella, it's going to be able to get through these difficult times, and it too will continue. It too will go on. It serves such a great purpose for bowling center operators, as well as the association moving forward. So, and it's absolutely where it belongs. So I'm excited about BCM as well. It doesn't have the high profile of Bowler's Journal, but to us it's as important.
Yeah.
And it's just a great vehicle.
Per trade magazine, I think a lot of people, may not quite understand that with the official publication, but I did want to make sure we covered that. We got a question in the chat. Luke Pearl was asking about association support, and could some associations be involved in doing some writing for Bowler's Journal. Luke, I would tell you to reach out to Mike or John Mark if you're interested in writing for the magazine. Having contributors continue to contribute to the magazine is important. As Keith and Mike talked about earlier, having a lot of the same folks be a part of the magazine is important to be able to operate the magazine in a professional way. But if you're interested, reach out directly to Mike or Keith, and they'll, Mike and John Mark, and they'll talk to you about that. And then another question in the chat about the membership itself. What's the benefit to the membership? I would say it started on Friday. I don't know how many of you opened up your inboxes Friday to the first edition of the cyber report that went out to our entire membership, but that cyber report was delivered Friday to over 600,000 email addresses. So on day one, we've already started opening up the box of information to a larger group. Anybody that didn't get that, check to see whether your email address is on file with USBC. But that is kind of the first piece of what we have planned here. It's going to take a little longer for us to figure out all the pieces, but I would just tell you that information exchange and education, and then celebrating our athletes is core competency to any association. It fits right into our promise, which is to celebrate the past, be mindful of the present, ensure bowling's future through thoughtful research, planning, delivery. Part of that delivery are the communication tools that we use to communicate with our members, but the larger bowling. Keith and Mike talked about US Bowler. USBC at one point in time was in this business. Bowling Magazine, there's lots of history here. If you're ever at the campus, come see me and I'll walk you over to the archives where all the Bowler's Journal archives and all the prior magazines sit. I know when John Mark comes in to research for a piece, he spends some time over there, which I think is interesting. And I always want to bother him, but I know he's working. But I have found that to be an amazing piece of research. One of the things that came up in the chat was Glenn Allison's piece. So I'm going to move to Bob Johnson for a minute. Bob Johnson and Barb Peltz will continue to move forward with the magazines, both BCM and Bowler's Journal, which we're excited about, and the cyber report as a piece of that. So again, there's a lot going on here. We try to make this kind of simple and that it's all going to go through efficiently. I would tell you at this point, this piece of business is perfectly imperfect in that it's been that for a long time and will continue to be that. But it's going to continue to evolve over time. So, guys, I appreciate all of that dialogue that went with it. If you don't mind, you said earlier there's so many stories and so many things that were impactful, and I did preview this one so that JT could be prepared. We didn't get too deep into it. We asked you for some covers, but if you don't mind, just each of you, Keith, you can go first. Mike, if you want to follow, but just a quick, what was the most impactful cover for you over the last, I don't know how many years, and what it meant to you personally? Because I think all of these things that happen within Bowler's Journal have this larger umbrella that is bowling, and you guys do such a good job. But Mike Flanagan hit on it when he was talking about the passion, right? To do it well, you also have to be passionate about it. So help me with a memory or a history that was passionate for you, but also something that might have been important for bowling in your not so distant past.
It's easy to talk about the anniversary issues. Obviously, those are were big statement issues and issues that we were really proud of. For me personally, I was really proud of the Jeremy Sonnenfeld 900 cover. We were trying to create a different look back then as well, trying to be more impactful with the covers. So we staged a great photo shoot with that and thought long and hard about what the cover would say and what's the key point and key element. Everything just seemed to come together from an industry standpoint, from a design standpoint, from an impactful story standpoint for that one cover. That was always one of my favorites.
I remember all the hassle with that one, with all the advertisers. They kept calling you. We didn't own the magazine that long at all, and oh boy, that was a hot story. But I don't know if you remember when he did that. And poor Mike, he had to deal with all these manufacturers who all wanted to make sure that their bowling pins were a certain way, or the shoes, and that was. I knew you were going to say that. That was.
It was about creating the best cover, and you try not to, tell the story with a bunch of logos and things like that. So it was important to just put him and the number 900 as big as possible on the cover. That was, to me, that was one of the more successful newsstandy type covers that we produced.
Yeah, I mean that. I remember the Jason Belmonte cover, and I think it was May of 2007, and the reason why is because he wasn't a superstar yet, but boy, he had the look, and we knew he had the talent. And Tom Clark had just run around New York. In fact, there it is, and I think that was taken in New York.
Yeah.
But you knew that this guy here, man, he's got superstar potential, superstardom, and we kind of, I think we got it right without really knowing what he was going to do in the future. But he did. He's been everything we expected of him, and more. So you like when you get things right, like that. When you go out on a limb and you say something, and then it happens. What do you know? It happens.
Awesome. Hey, I know Mike Flanagan just had it in his hand, but go ahead and put that 100th anniversary up there too. And again, I know a lot went into this. I remember when you guys were selling it long in advance of what you had planned there. Obviously, it's a bunch of pages. For me, when I read, this piece, and it's so educational in the things that maybe you didn't remember, right? But that were very true. I always, when I talk about the Open Championships and I talk about 116 years and the responsibility about moving, the Open Championships into the 200 years, right? That comes with the responsibility of the magazine. But one of the things that I think is cool is when you talk about something like this being around for 100 years, there's a reason why that's true. Mike, it looks like you have something you want to point out. Go ahead if you want to for the guys.
I just hadn't looked through this thing in a while. This is an awesome magazine. I mean, it's got all the history of all the past Bowler's Journals. There's just been so many. I mean, it goes back to 1930.
Yeah, and so Mike and Keith, how many different people contributed to that magazine? When you went out and sold it, and I know you do this, it's just part of the business, right? Hey, what do you guys want in it? What do you think's a good idea? There's all these But how many people really contributed to that magazine when you really think about it?
But I'd like to, I'll say something. There's one individual who I interviewed 12 years before that issue came out. It was now Hall of Fame writer Bob Johnson. And he says, Keith, I'll tell you what, I promise I'll be here at least through the 100th anniversary issue. And that issue was developed by Bob for 5 years. Never asked, hey, I need more money to work so many extra hours, guys. Never whined, never complained. And he, yes, there were a lot of people who contributed. Absolutely. But Bob Johnson is responsible for that 100th anniversary issue. And Bob Johnson is in the Hall of Fame for a reason, because he is the best. And I believe in 15 years, 20 years, John Mark will be there. And that's what we're proud of is our staff. And, we put out 50 different editions a year, basically an issue a month between everything. And that's 8 people. I mean, we have the 2 best editors. We have probably the best salesperson in Barbara Peltz. When people ask, how do you do it? How do you put out so many issues? How do you pump out so much volume? Well, that's easy, because we have what we think are sort of best people in the business. And I'm so glad that they're going to continue on.
Yeah.
So glad.
I appreciate that. Mike, if you don't mind, and Keith, you did a nice job of segueing into that. And John Mark, if you want to pop in here too, you certainly can. I'm not sure people really understand how many resources, how many people, how many hands that go into, and you guys have been doing it for a long time. But when I say, well, how many folks really contributed to the magazine, how would you answer that in terms of the actual operations and getting it done? And Keith, I appreciate what you said about Bob, because I think everybody knows why Bob's in the Hall of Fame. It's so important because he really, even the segue, right, from Bob to John Mark, that was a big piece of the magazine's history as well, that I think was so impactful. But Mike, John Mark, help everybody understand what it takes to publish a magazine like this on a monthly basis.
Well, I don't know. I always tell people it's something you really don't stop and think about because you get really tired. So you just kind of move on to the next day and you're ahead of you, you get it done. And so it's like what you go through when people ask you to teach them how to do something. You say, it's just faster if I do it myself, because I just think 3 steps ahead. I think about 4 things at one time, and that's I don't know if we took a class like that in journalism school, or if it just is inherent in people who go to journalism school. But from a writing standpoint, that's just the way you operate. You just what's ahead of you. It's got to get done. You think about 3, 4 things at one time and get them done all at the same time. Staff-wise here, there's circulation people, there's business management, there's ad sales, there's graphic designers, there's production people who deal with the printers. So all of those play a role through the whole month in getting every issue out. And Keith's right, we do 52 of these closings, 50 of these closings a year, so you're rolling out 1 a week. That we've had larger staffs before. So, sometimes it took staffs of 17, and we've had staffs of 8, and you just get it done with 8. It's like any job like that where they say, if you've got 3 days of work to do and you've got 2 days left to do it, you got to figure out a way to cram them in there.
Right.
So that's the way the production cycle goes, and it just continually cycles, over and over and over. You try never to look back because it's going to wear you out. So you just look ahead and you just keep charging ahead. One thing that I did want to echo what Keith said about, contributors over the years. There's the Bob Johnson to John Mark era. There was the Jim Dressel to Bob Johnson era. There was the Mort to Jim Dressel era. One of the things that we've been so fortunate with our company, with both the bowling magazines and the billiard magazines, is that, the industries have people who are so passionate about it, and there's a lot of people who have incredible talent whose passion just happened to be bowling. In a lot of those cases, they're writers or designers or things of that nature. And so we've been very fortunate to have the number one, title in these categories where people have that kind of talent. They come and seek us out. They want to write for us. Bowler's Journal, if you're a bowling writer, you want to write for Bowler's Journal. And so we've been very fortunate over the years to have that type of status where we've got these incredibly gifted people who say, listen, I want to be part of your story.
Yeah, that's so spot on too, because I know there has to be the number is just way up there. John Mark, you have anything you want to would contribute to that conversation?
Just a couple quick things. What Mike says about not really having the luxury of stopping and thinking about what you're doing, but rather just doing it because you always have a deadline pressing is so true. I remember having a conversation with Chris Chartrand at Kegel a couple years ago. And one of the things he said to me was how he was thinking about what it's like to be a magazine in the magazine business, because you can finish one issue and then you can't exhale and think, oh, okay, now I'll take a little break here. You don't have a break. You close one issue and you instantly start planning the next. That's just how it is. And also, as Mike said, which has been so true in my experience, if you've got 3 days worth of work left and 2 days to do it, well, guess what? You're going to find a way to get it done. And one of the phrases Mike used is just get it done. And that was one of the first things Bob Johnson impressed upon me when I came aboard was, in fact, I would say the most important thing Bob impressed upon me was, you never, ever, ever fail to meet a deadline. Your deadline is what it is for an issue, and you do everything in your power to ensure that you meet it. And that has been my objective with every issue, as I know it was Bob's. So that's why everything that Mike and Keith just said about the demands of the business rings so true in my experience.
You got to be organized.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a profession that you can get into if you're not organized.
But it's a special kind of organization that's unique to journalists, which is, I wouldn't dare tip this screen down to show my desk because it's kind of Oscar Madison and The Odd Couple. It's that type of thing. But I know where everything is, and I know how to get at it, and I know it. So there's a very peculiar organization that comes with being a journalist, but it's a lot of fun.
Thanks for that. Yeah, one of the other things that came up in the chat is somebody asked about a basket price for all in terms of our media offerings. And I would just encourage you to stay tuned. The way in which we sell or include this magazine into some of the other business structures will become more clear over time, but mostly post-COVID, if you will. We got a long way to go there. Obviously, a lot of the advertisers, like a lot of the bowling proprietors and some of the consumers, are certainly distressed at this time, and so we want to work with everybody on this moving forward to ensure the productivity continues in the short term, but it's really structured in a way that makes sense long term in both how we sell it and how we sell to the advertisers, if you will. I hope that makes sense. Mike, you got anything for these guys?
Again, just, thanks for all you've done. And a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into anything, whether you lay concrete outside or asphalt in hot, temperatures, or whether you work at McDonald's in the drive-through and had a record day for the amount of cars that come through. Everybody has their jobs, right? But I do think that the jobs that you guys have had in the print media business, being able to handle a media company myself, to be able to, all the work you have to do over the years and all the deadlines like Jean-Marc talked about, and to anybody that's watching this, these guys have worked their tails off and are going to continue to work their tails off moving forward with whatever it is that they're involved with from a magazine perspective. And I'm just looking forward to what's going to be new, because, if someone were to purchase Inside Bowling, there'd be a bunch of new cool changes happening, because when you have something and it's yours, you've tried things, maybe you're like, I tried that, it didn't work very well, so I'm not going to try that again. It's just human nature. And I'm looking forward to seeing the two worlds coming together and moving this thing forward for the next chapter of it with a lot of the great same people. So I'm just kind of stoked for it. I know today we had moments that were a little bit sad and moments that are very positive moving forward. We even saw that in the comments a little bit, that we're being too positive about this. But I think it's just been a pleasure to sit here and be able to talk to all of you on today's broadcast. And I've appreciated our relationships over the years, and I know Bowler's Journal is in great hands. And I cannot wait to see the future of Bowler's Journal from whatever perspective that's going to be. So just thanks again. Really appreciate you guys spending some time here and allowing me to be part of this.
No, thank you. It's been
I
fun.
appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Jean-Marc, you have anything for these guys before they go?
Look, I've expressed this to them privately, and I'll say it again now. I am so grateful for the opportunity that Mike and Keith have afforded me over these past 6 years to indulge my passion for telling bowling's story through the pages of a magazine as revered in my life as Bowler's Journal has been for so long. Thank you guys for that opportunity. Thank you for doing everything you've done to help continue its story beyond this difficult year that we've had in 2020. And I can't wait to see what's next for the magazine and to have a hand in it.
Awesome, thanks. Before you guys go, and you guys be thinking about your close as I talk for a minute here, I know each of you will certainly want to say something. We will be having you back on, which will be a lot of fun. I know it's been kind of floating around, but one of the things that we're going to want to do in the not so distant future is a feature story long form on you guys and kind of the history of the magazine, so that these new readers that come in, can understand it. It will include feature in the magazine, video support from USBC production. And then also we'll bring you all back on here to ask you some interesting questions from the things that, kind of get spun off from that story. So I'm really looking forward to that in a couple months. I hope you all agree to be a part of it, even not knowing what stories those are that get told. Jean-Marc will be leading that effort, but really looking forward to that. One of the things that I think is so important is just, the media, the storytelling. You guys have been doing it for years. And so I would just say, really appreciate, how you've gone about it, the professional nature in which you and your staff have delivered this magazine for all of these years. As someone that grew up in bowling, have followed the magazine for as long as I remember, but then moving to the business part, being able to collaborate and have conversations about things I might not have been happy about or things that I wanted to celebrate. You were always willing to have a conversation and tell me I was wrong, even if I was wrong. And I think that is something that I think you've probably done with everybody to get it right at Bowler's Journal. And so with that, I'll let you, Mike, and Keith have a closing statement. And then I'll be back with Jean-Marc and Mike to close the show. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chad, for those remarks. And on behalf of Mike and me, I think the first person we want to thank is Mort Luby for showing the confidence that he had in Mike and me, trusting us to carry on his legacy. I want to thank our staff. I've already spoken about them, but we wouldn't have done anything without you. And because, I've been able to do other things in the industry and show support in other areas, we learned that from Mort Luby, to go out and to give support to the industry outside of your own entity. But I couldn't have done any of that if it wasn't for this great staff that we have. I want to thank the industry partners from the PBA to the BPAA and the IPSIA and the Billiard and Bowling Institute in America and all of them, IBMA. I'm going to be in trouble because I'm sure I missed somebody out, but the relationships have been great. It's been fun. The associations have been terrific. The life experiences have been awesome. So thank you for that. Thank you to the advertisers. I'm definitely not going to get into start listing advertisers now, but thank you. Not only for your loyalty and your continued financial support, but the friendships. I can go so many people's homes and feel welcome there, and that's kind of cool feeling. And so many of our advertisers have that feeling to us. Most importantly, thank you, readers. Thank you, people. Thank you to critics, and thank you for those people who enjoy the magazine. It's that passion, be it critical or complimentary. It's that passion that drove the magazine for 107 years. So stay with it. We really believe that USBC is going to do a great job with this product, and we really believe it's going to flourish in the future. So thank you all for being such great customers of ours for so long.
All right. Thanks, guys. We appreciate your time today. And I know we'll all be talking soon, but appreciate you taking the time and the storytelling, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I want to tell a quick story before we get into kind of closing the show. When I came in as a brand manager at Ebonite, one of the things that we were tasked for was looking for advertising dollars and where they would be spent. One of the reasons why I talked about that basket price a minute ago, so Mike Kobaki, I appreciate the question. When you're advertising in something as a brand manager, you've got to look at everything: the PBA, Bowler's Journal, the other magazines that were out there at the time, US Bowler, and you kind of have to make a decision about what's the most important. I remember walking in and having a conversation with the gentleman that I was working for at the time. His name was Bob Reed, and I was making some cuts in my advertising budgets in a few different places, and one of the places was Bowler's Journal. And Bob looked at me and he said, "Yeah, you'd just be crazy to cut any advertising dollars there." And this is a conversation that a few years earlier I had with Jim Dressel when I was in San Antonio working for Columbia. And Bob went on to explain that the reason why you don't cut advertising in a magazine like Bowler's Journal is because they're always going to do it the right way, because they're always going to look at it professionally, and they're always going to do what's right for bowling. And he told a really deep story about Keith and Mike and how they invested, and it came out in this show, mortgaged their homes to be able to deliver a monthly piece to bowling that told bowling stories from a media perspective. And, Bob gave me the business, and I gave him the reasons why. Okay, well, give me a few more bucks in my budget and I'll go spend there. And left the office that day with the message that there are no more dollars, and this isn't a place you can cut. But it was his belief in Mike and Keith and the way that they operated the magazine was why we weren't cutting budgets here. And I really took that to heart. Took a different look at the magazine through a lens. Started a dialogue with Keith not too long after that in talking about the magazine. And one of the interesting things is when a sale like this goes down, yeah, of course, the pandemic and everything that went with that. But I've had so many conversations with Keith over the years about, possibilities in growing this thing, that a lot of the things that you're going to see that we're going to do with it came from those conversations with Keith. Some of them are ideas that Keith and Mike and the Bowler's Journal staff had, that years ago, if Bowler's Journal and USBC could ever get together, what would you do with it? So I'm really excited about the possibilities with that and separating out the storytelling from the advertising, making it more consumer driven as opposed to the business of bowling, if you will. There's still going to be some business in there. There's still going to be a lot of conversation around the business, but really those long form stories and creating a larger subscriber base to the magazine through our tournaments, associations, and those types of things. And then from that story with Bob, I just want to share that when I became ED of USBC, Mike and Keith asked for a meeting, and we sat down at Bowl Expo. And I had a memory of that when Keith was telling the story about Tom, because it was very similar. They did a couple things that day, and I don't know what plan they had going into it. But I left there knowing that there was a relationship with Bowler's Journal that was important to bowling. But I also left there knowing how important that Keith and Mike believed the job here as ED of USBC was. And so as stakeholders within bowling, they were willing to share that with me. They talked about the former EDs and, Chad Murphy and how that. And so they've even held us, responsible at times to some of those conversations that have been important here. And so I look forward to continuing those conversations as well. This is an iconic magazine, an iconic brand. We didn't talk about the Bowler's Journal tournament at all today, but that's certainly a big piece of this as well. And I remember, and everybody does that's ever bowled that tournament, the first time you went to the Open Championship and you went over and bowled the BJ. It's kind of just one of those things that you do. And now, there's such a large number or percentage of bowlers that go do that. It's grown over the years. And so the Bowler's Journal tournament, obviously a piece of that. But right at the center of it is that question that came from Mike Kobaki talking about the media. And the thing that I would say, he's asking there should be a basket price for all the media here at USBC. I just couldn't do a better job. It's nice to have enough media products that there could be a basket, right? When you think about Bowl TV and what it was years ago and the vision for it moving forward, this piece of business within Bowler's Journal, our video production that was really started by Matt Lawson, a number of years ago, that Jason Thomas, oversees so beautifully. You think about that basket of products, and it's all to celebrate, inform, and educate bowling on all things bowling all the time. So we'll celebrate our athletes, we'll inform and educate, from coaching to equipment specs, associations, all the things that go with that. I'm really looking forward to weaving in some of those things that Keith and I have been talking about for several years. So that's just kind of my personal journey of this, but really it goes back to Keith and Mike, taking a risk years ago. Who knows what would have happened to this magazine had Keith and Mike not stepped in as employees of that company to purchase Luby Publishing at the time. So it's really, for me, it's a pretty amazing journey that they've taken. Either one of you two want to comment on any of that?
Chad, I just want to echo your passion for the next chapter in Bowler's Journal's story. I totally agree about the storytelling potential here. What USBC's resources, what opportunities those resources are going to untap now. This is, I think, an exciting next iteration of the magazine going forward. And again, as I said earlier, I think readers of this magazine are going to be pleasantly surprised by what's ahead in this magazine. And I think implicit in this discussion of Bowler's Journal selling in a time of global pandemic is the story of how durable a brand Bowler's Journal has been for so long. And I think that's such an important part of the magazine story. I mean, here's a magazine that has been around since 1913. So what do we know historically about that means this brand has endured and withstood over those decades? I mean, the Spanish flu, there was a pandemic a century ago that it withstood. The Great Depression, 2 world wars, the reduction in lane beds that happened in the 1960s, the 2008 financial crisis that Keith alluded to. And here it is again. Sorry to be corny, but I think the metaphor is apt, rising like a phoenix from the ashes one more time, and finding a new step forward as, yes, an iconic brand in the industry, thanks to USBC's interest in bringing it forward. And I can't wait to see, again, what's ahead for Bowler's Journal in the years to come.
Thanks for that, Mike.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, is Bowler's Journal moving in-house, right, on the USBC campus? How are you handling that? Is there going to be some overlap between Bowler's Journal folks working with the media department at USBC? Like, do you have any plans for that, or is it just too early to tell?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've certainly had to do in talking to our board about this was, provide a business plan like we do for everything else. And it really calls for the Bowler's Journal content creators, the ones that are writing, to just continue to do that. And the operations of the business will move in-house, over time. And so we're continuing to work with the same printer, the same circulation folks. All of it will take time to move, but longer term, the folks that are delivering the content just keep delivering the content, but also be thinking, bigger, more long form, so that we can collaborate here in doing something long form from a print, also a video, then a digital piece. So the footprint can be, kind of all three, a trilogy, if you will. And so, but for the most part, just keep generating the content, keep telling the stories. And then on the other side, we'll figure out the operations. Obviously, the finances will come into the finance department under the strategic direction of the finance committee, right? So some of those things are just, how we operate, but it'll take some time. An initial business plan was created for, 15 months. And then, hopefully by then we'll be, post-pandemic, and we'll be executing on some of the bigger plans that we have for the magazine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just can't help but think, USBC has this media department, and Bowler's Journal, that's what Bowler's Journal is. And I've worked with all these people out in the field, and there's a tremendous group of people in both silos, I guess. I don't really want to call them silos, but each one of their little pots there. And now kind of collaborating together, there's some excitement there.
Oh yeah, I mean it. You know, I say this. I would be remiss if I didn't. We got to get everybody back as part of that, right? Because we, you know, certainly have gone through some financial struggles like everybody has. That's in distress in the industry, but the long-term plan, you know, that we had kind of talked about a few years ago is kind of on pause right now as we get through COVID, and then, you know, we just turn it back on whenever we can. But you've kind of seen it, you know, from your lens in working with us a little bit. You can see the potential of it, and I hope, you know, we're able to show that to, you know, our members and the larger community as we go forward. And I'm excited about it.
Cool. Yeah, me too.
Anything you guys want to close the show with before we get out of here for today? Mike, you want to go first?
Opportunity to discuss this transition, Chad, and talk about the way forward. And I look forward to future discussions in this medium about what's happening with Bowler's Journal in the months and years ahead.
Mike?
Yeah, you guys are our teammates again, right? I'm kind of the outcast on today's show. You know, I'm not blood right now. But no, you know, anything I can do to help you guys or you know, move along as well, I'm always here, and I enjoy being on the show again. It's August. It's hot all over the country. We're still in a pandemic. Boy, I can't wait for something great to happen here in the next couple of months. I'm waking up every day, checking the calendar, checking the news, checking the Worldometer report on coronavirus. Man, we really need this thing to get back to some sort of normalcy, don't we?
We do. And I want to hit that before I close, but in closing the Bowler's Journal piece, there's going to be a lot of folks that have a lot of opinion about this, some strong, some weaker, some passionate, some, you know, the folks that have been reading the magazine for a long time, just hang in there. Your same great writers are going to be there providing content. And we think that there'll be more. For those of you that might not have been paying attention to the magazine, check it out. You'll see it every Friday through the Cyber Report, and then slowly but surely we'll get to win your business over time. Some of you will just be added to it, which is another wonderful thing that we can do. But really excited about the future of the magazine with John, Mark, and Mike continuing to provide the great content, and then all of our other folks supporting it with advanced storytelling. To the pandemic, Mike, that segues me into saying, you know, yeah, we need something good to happen. And I say this, I know there's a lot of folks out there that are in distress. Things are going to get better. They are. I've spent the last week on several different calls that lead me to believe we are. Congratulations to the folks in New York, the centers that are now open there. I know you're not open to the level that we all want you to be, but hang in there, keep fighting. What they did in New York, something as simple as sending bowling pins to the governor to create awareness for bowling, was just enormous. I know there are still some folks shut down. But I said this in a meeting here at the campus a few days ago, and it just echoes your point, Mike. You know, we're working really hard to try to figure this out and manage this thing. But boy, it sure would be nice to go out and run a tournament soon. And so, you know, we're working, you know, really hard to that and looking forward to it. I still can't say or pinpoint when that will be, because we certainly need a break from this virus. But know that we're still open for business and still working through the challenges, and we know you are too, and that there are better days ahead, and we're looking forward to them. For those of you that are just out there steaming through, keep motoring, right? Do what what you have to do. I know in some places people wearing masks while they're bowling. I know some places they're pulling them down. Some places, leagues are taking place with one team bowling at 6 and another one bowling at 7:30. Hey, whatever we have to do to continue to enjoy this great sport in this short period of time, and to get to whatever normal will look like after this is over. But just appreciate everyone's support for bowling. If there's anything we can do to help, certainly give us a call. We want to. Just keep your eye out. There's a couple special edition shows that's coming. One I'll keep in the bag, if you will, but the next one will be Andrew Kane's special edition show on equipment specs. With all the changes that went in place August 1, we thought it was a great idea to have Jason Overstreet conduct an interview with Andrew, so be on the lookout for that. And other than that, I just, again, like to congratulate all the bowling centers that have fought to get open, and now Please do everything you can to stay open. I look forward to talking to all of you soon. Mike, John Mark, Keith, Mr. Pinozzo, thanks for the show today. Everybody stay safe and healthy, and we'll be back in touch soon. Thank you.